So let's talk about this new employee experience, okay, and how should it look? So what I'm going to do now is kind of walk you through a typical onboarding process. Now, as I walk you through this, I kind of want you to keep a couple of things in mind. You don't have to do each step literal as I kind of lay it out. I'm doing this as an illustration to kind of give you a framework on some of the activities that you should do. Now, you want to kind of tailor it to your organization and what will work best. But the part that you do want to incorporate is the timeline. So we are going to break this down in basically kind of 5 parts. It's going to be the things you do before the employee even gets there, the things you do on the first day, the things you do their first week, the things you do their first month, and the things you do their first 90 days. So that part is kind of in stone, and that's the framework that you want to follow. And I'm going to give you, again, some things to kind of think about. But within that framework, feel free to change it, tweak it, adapt it for what works best for your organization. The important thing is, and you'll notice as I go through this, is just having a big set, a large set of very specific items that you've laid out to give that employee that emotional connection to your organization. One of the things that I always talk about, these kind of 4 jewels that I like to talk about that I think are the foundation of any HR strategy. And one of those jewels I talk about is viewing employees as investments and not expenses. And when you view an employee as an investment and not an expense, that means you put a lot of time, energy, and effort into making sure you get the right employees and you incorporate them into your organization accordingly. So look at this process as part of that investment so you can get the proper return. So let's walk through it. So first, how do you prepare? Okay, before you even get to the onboarding, you need to properly prepare your organization for the new hire. Okay, so when I say prepare, there are a number of questions that I want you to think about. And you should be able to answer these questions to know that you have adequately prepared for this new resource that's about to come on board. The first question, have you properly communicated with your employees, the ones that are currently there, that you're bringing someone new on board? That's important, right? Because we're talking about building this kind of emotional connection between this new employee and your organization. Well, you want the people there to be very welcoming to this individual. And that starts by them, first of all, being aware that you're even hiring. So be transparent about that. Let them know you're bringing in a new resource. Let them know why. Here's the next question. How will you introduce that employee? You should have already thought about that before you even bring them on board. If you're a small business, I always say a good rule of thumb is to make the time for you to be the one to go and introduce the new employee around the organization. Why is that? Because when you do it, it shows that you value this person, that you view this person as an extremely important resource for the organization, and everyone else sees it that way as well. So make that a habit. Here's another question. Whose work is this employee going to take on? Meaning, are they taking on work that another employee currently does? Are you creating brand new work for this employee? Is it a hybrid of work from a number of different employees? The point is, you should be able to clearly articulate those types of things. And probably most importantly, if this person is going to be taking work from other individuals, because maybe you're going to now have those other individuals do other things, have you communicated all of this prior to the new person coming on board? Don't wait until you have the new person on board to then have those conversations. You should be doing this before they even walk in the door. Here's another big one, and I see this a lot in small businesses. Who's responsible for training this employee, right? Whose responsibility is that? It is unfair to both the new employee and the potential employee in your company if you wait until after you hire somebody and then that's when you tell one of your current employees, oh, I want you to show them how to do this. This is a conversation that you should have had, again, before the new person even comes on board, before you even hire them. I want you to be able to train them on X, Y, and Z. Or is this something that you're sending them away for training? Regardless, that's a question you should be able to answer. And the final question is, what will this new resource that you're bringing on board now allow your organization to do? I always say it's a good practice to share this with the organization. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you're growing. So if you're growing, why not be transparent with your organization and say, hey, when we bring this new person on board, we're now going to be able to do this where we weren't able to do that before. So again, the first step in this whole new employee experience is first preparing the organization for the new person. So now you've prepared the organization and now you've hired this person. So let's walk through what a typical onboarding process will look like. Let's start with day one. What are some of the things that they should do? Well, first, kind of as a precursor to this, I always say it is a good idea to have an agenda for a brand new employee. I cannot tell you how many times I've started a new job and the first day I get there, it's clear that they really don't have a lot for me to do. One of the worst things you can do is just have an employee sit in front of a computer and do a whole bunch of orientation videos the entire day. It's boring. It makes them wonder, did I even make the right decision? Not saying they can't do some of that incorporated in their first day, but remember, you're trying to make a good first impression. So why don't you plan out a first day by having a very specific agenda with some activities on it? For example, maybe they start their day with a one-on-one meeting with you as the company owner, okay? Maybe that's when you take them on a tour of the office. I always say that's the perfect time to do that. They're brand new. Walk them around the office. Show them where everything is. On day one is probably when you want to schedule a team meeting. Now, this is something you would have done prior to them even coming on board. Why is that important? Again, you want them to feel like they're part of the family, right? So the first day on the job, have a team meeting scheduled and let the purpose of that team meeting be not only to introduce the new person, but maybe have some item of business so they can instantly start feeling a part of it. Maybe put an item of business up there and even ask their opinion on it. Yes, you understand that they don't really know the lay of the land and that type of thing, but that little thing of asking their opinion will go a long way in making them start to feel like you want them to be part of the team, okay? Maybe they have lunch with you or some other person within the organization, okay? Do you have some swag that you can give them? You know, if not, maybe you go get a t-shirt made, whatever the case may be. The point is, use that first day to make a great first impression. I still have a memory of when I started working at People's Gas, my very first day on the job. I remember when I walked in the door, they had on my cubicle, they had put together this sign, kind of cheesy, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever, where my entire staff, who I hadn't met yet, the group that I was going to be working with, they all took a picture where, you know, they had their hands in the circle and they had the little caption and it said, "Welcome, Brandon, to the team. We can't wait to meet you." Then I went into my desk and they had a little basket sitting at my desk and they had all these little like goodies in it, things I guess I had mentioned in the interview that I liked, and sitting right at my computer was a printed out agenda. It was typed, it was neat, and it had my whole day lined up on exactly what I was going to be doing that day. It included meeting with my supervisor, meeting with the vice president of HR, meeting with this person. We had a team meeting that day at 2 o'clock and all of these things. And I just remember going home that day feeling fulfilled, like, okay, I'm part of this team. So again, you want that day one of the new employee experience to actually have things for them to do. Remember, you're preparing for this person. So that's the first day. So what are some of the things you do in their first week, okay? So these are some of the things you can do. Maybe you schedule shadow sessions, for example, within your organization, right? You have different people doing different jobs. So actually schedule some time for the employee to sit with these individuals to see what they do. Now, remember when I said earlier about preparing the workforce for the new hire, you've already had these conversations before the person even gets there. So this isn't new to them. They already know, hey, when Brandon starts, I'm going to have him shadow you on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then you tell your other employee, I'm going to have Brandon shadow you on Monday and Friday. So they all know ahead of time. Don't spring it on them at the last minute, because you don't want that kind of vibe. Here's another thing. In the first week of employment, actually give them some work to do. You hired them for a reason. So actually have a specific project that they can work on. It may be something that you've already pre-put together, maybe something a little lower stakes, right? Because they're brand new. They may not quite understand, obviously, how things work and how you do things. So you obviously don't want to give them something high stakes, but maybe give them something a little more low stakes. But the point is giving them some sort of meaningful work to be able to. Notice I said low stakes. I didn't say meaningless. Those are two different things. But the point is having something for them to work on. And definitely in that first week, you want to have a follow-up meeting, okay? Because you want to know how they're doing. It's a check-in. Maybe so you do it at the end of that first week. Hey, just wanted to follow up with you. How are things going? This is an opportunity for you to ask them questions, to let them ask you any specific questions. Make sure it's a very open-ended kind of opening environment and vibe that you set, right? Because they're probably going to have some questions. Some of them may be a little shy or say, I don't know if I should ask that. Make sure you're extending that opening to them. Say, hey, you're new. You've only been here a week. It's okay. Ask anything that you want. I am a resource for you. I want to answer that because I want to make sure you understand, okay? This is also the time that you want to have a conversation with them about their roles and responsibilities and their expected results. You want to have a sit down with them sometime during this first week so they're crystal clear on what it is you hired them for. Another one of the jewels that I typically say is 90% of workplace confusion, drama, conflict, and poor performance is due to a lack of clarity on roles, responsibilities, and expected results. So the time that you want to make sure an employee is clear on what those things are is during their first week of employment. That's when you sit down and have your meeting and go over these things with them. Maybe not necessarily the first day, but definitely within the first week, okay? So now the first month, what do you want to do? Well, remember that project that you gave them the first week? Sometime within the first month, you want to make sure you're following up with them, making sure they have all the resources that they need. Here's another thing. At the conclusion of 30 days, you might want to have them do some sort of self-evaluation form, okay? That'll help give you an idea on how they feel about their performance. How do they feel they're kind of playing into the group, okay? So this is a great tool, again, to help incorporate that feeling of making them feel like I'm part of this family. Okay? And then finally, at month 3, they've kind of completed, I like to say, their probationary period. Now, I don't mean this technically, okay? But 3 months is kind of that probationary period, like now they're fully integrated into your organization. Or maybe you do have a technical probationary period. Either way, you want to make sure you recognize that they've been here for 3 months. Here's something fun you could even potentially do. Maybe give them some little cheesy certificate and say something like, hey, look, you did it. You've been here 90 days and you're still here and you love it. You know, make it fun, celebratory, whatever the case may be. But I think you see the point here. You want to have a very well-defined onboarding period that has what you do before they get there, the first day, the first week, the first month, and the first 90 days. If you do this, this is how you start to develop that new employee experience where the employee feels more emotionally connected to your organization.